Hi everyone, welcome to HR Elevate podcast. And today with us we have Miss Simran Oberoi, Associate Director at AON, and she has over 20 years of experience in HR, and she is also visiting faculty at two MBA colleges. So let's welcome Miss Simran. Hi Simran, how are you?
Hi Nishant, I'm very good. How are you? Thank you for
I'm
having
doing
me here.
great. It's great to have you here with us. Thank you for sparing time and being willing to share your insights and knowledge.
No worries. My pleasure.
So, as we talk about HR experiences, what was your cue to get into HR vertical?
So I'll tell you, my journey was very interesting because when I went to do my MBA, I had done my economics honors. So I had no
Okay.
idea that I will actually specialize in human resources. I had done my economics honors and my additional papers were maths and statistics. So most people suggested that after you finish the first year, in the second year when there's specialization, finance is the most likely choice. Given that was your area of graduation and specialization. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? Makes sense. So I did my summer training, summer project in finance actually. And when I did that, I think I realized what I didn't want to do. I still had not figured out what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But
I feel
I
you.
think I figured that I don't want to do finance. Okay.
Okay.
And but I did see a few things while I was because I was working in an organization on that project. So I realized I saw a few things, I experienced a few interactions with the HR professionals there. And then when I went back after the summer training, I mean, again, the likely choice was that, okay, no finance, that means HR or marketing, right? I then went back in my mind. What were the papers I enjoyed
Okay.
studying? What did I like doing? What were the subjects that I enjoyed listening to the professors about? And I figured that, yeah, okay, so HR was an area that I really enjoyed doing in the first year itself when I went through those papers. And what I also saw was that couple of papers in marketing which I had enjoyed studying in the first year. So what I did was I chose that, okay, fine, I'll do HR. By and large, if I can do 100% HR, it's fine. But I needed a couple of courses to complete the number of credits. So I picked up HR, the major of HR, with a couple of papers which are my marketing minors. So that's how my journey in deciding that I wanted to study HR happened. And I think, I always feel that sometimes knowing what not to do is the better way to identify, what you're actually meant to do.
Totally agree. And I've been there at the point where, after first year of MBA, you are like, what should I take the major as? And everyone suggests finance because, hey, this is a very specific statement from a person I know,
Right.
family friend, and he
Right.
pursued. He's from MIT, Massachusetts, so his suggestion holds a lot of weight. And his statement was, "MBA is for finance. Why else would you do MBA?"
Yeah. Yes, I think that's what. I think that's the
Yeah,
general perception that used to exist. Yeah, you're right.
and I still went for marketing, and it well, there was some backlash initially, but I pulled through.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so what happened after that? After you finished HR and marketing, and then went out to the real corporate world
Yeah.
where fights happen.
So I think so. I mean, even the placement time was a little tricky because 2003, if you remember, was just in the
Hmm.
back of a recession. So 2002 was a recessionary year because of 9/11, right? So 9/11
WWW.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. So after that, we saw that a lot of our seniors were finding it difficult to get placements. Then when we moved into 2003, things had not really changed a lot. And we were and there were only three students out of 110 in the batch who were pure HR with this very minor marketing kind of profile,
Wow.
and one of them was me. And then we got to know that there weren't a lot of companies coming for hiring for HR roles, given
Hmm.
the situation. But somehow I think what helped was that even the few that came, they came with good roles. Okay.
Okay.
And well, at that time, because you are not experienced, so you don't know what is a good role, bad role, so you just go with the brand or the name of the organization and what they have told you will be your job role. So I applied for this role. It was in organization development. IT network engineering organization,
Wow.
and they didn't intend to come for an HR role, but they thought, okay, chalo, theek hai, we have come, so we will interview. There are only three people. What's the big deal? So they interviewed a couple of us, and then I got the role. I joined them as a management trainee. So my first year actually, and my only year in corporate HR, because after that, immediately after that, I moved in HR consulting. But in that first year, of course, I learned a lot. I learned again, I think actually how an organization functions, and the role that these different sub functions or these different departments have in an organization, overall organizational context. So I think that first year sort of set a little bit of foundation from a macro level point of view about
Okay.
what generally how an organization works, and how teams need to work together. So a lot of those things became clearer to me. To be very honest, it was a very comfortable role in the sense that it was not a very high pressure role, and it was not a role where I needed to, like, I see a lot of young people who are especially in their first roles, they're really pressured for time or deliverables or deadlines and things like that. I didn't have that kind of pressure in the first year. But yeah, once I moved to
Wow.
consulting, of course, consulting made up for it. For
Yeah.
so I think that was interesting. So moving to consulting was a very different experience. But I think the fact that you're seeing me in consulting after even like that many years, so since 2004 now in consulting,
Wow.
um, it
Almost two
just says,
decades.
yeah, so it just says that that how much I enjoy what I do. So
Wow. Now you have learned to enjoy the pressure
yes.
and the what fast-paced life in consulting vertical.
Absolutely. I think the first couple of years, and incidentally, my first consulting role was also with Aon. So I
Wow.
joined Aon because it was Hewitt at that point in time, Hewitt Associates, and
Hmm.
it was the largest brand in HR consulting. And it was an offer, like for me, it was a big jump because consulting roles were very few for freshers, who were
Okay.
coming from non-consulting backgrounds. So for me, I had just worked 1 year as a management trainee. And then for me to get a consulting opportunity was like a really big deal. And especially in a consulting firm which was so well known and which had a large clientele in India, and not just India and
Hmm.
APAC, in Asia Pacific. So it really, it was just very easy to take that decision. But I think eventually, of course, I stayed on because of the work, because of the various pros that consulting has outweighed the few cons that it has. And you're right,
Okay.
it was very high pressured initially, but
Mhm.
also very exciting because you're working with very, very different teams. Plus, I think the advantage was that you're working with a lot of clients. So you have experience of looking outside of your organization. The pool of people you can learn from is much bigger. So I think that was very exciting for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's something I have explored and learned about consulting. Initially, it might feel to be very high speed chase,
Yeah,
very stressful. One of the reasons is because you don't just have to work with your internal teams, but also with
yeah,
teams you just came in contact with, and you are supposed to integrate with them at, you know, in a whim on the
yeah,
spot. And that takes
absolutely.
time and it takes practice, and it does
Yeah.
not happen naturally.
Yeah. Also, Nishant, what happens is that, your clients oftentimes know as much as you do, or they sometimes know much more than you. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and as a consultant, they still continue to view you as an expert, right? So,
Yeah.
you have a lot of pressure to make sure that your knowledge levels don't drop. you know you are on top of what's happening in the market, you're on top of what is happening in those industry segments, on top of the news related to clients you're working with. So it's not really just what we do inside, what models we follow, what approaches we follow, or what methodology we follow in consulting, but it's much beyond that. So I think that also adds to the pressure of wanting to remain one step ahead.
Yeah. True. That's these are the hidden aspects of being in consulting. You
Yeah,
always have to be one step ahead because that's what you're getting paid for.
absolutely, completely.
So, as you grew through the ranks in
Yeah.
HR, how did your perspective change about HR vertical, and how did you get into DEI?
So I think that's a very interesting question because the again, like with most other things, it was not by design. Okay, it was by
Okay.
chance. So I was working in consulting. So I worked with Aon, which was Hewitt Associates. Then I worked with PwC in consulting with government clients. Then I moved to Hay Group, which is now Conferry, so bought over by Conferry now, and
Okay.
I worked in, I was leading the APAC vertical for one of their business segments from an industry point of view. And
Okay.
I think all of that gave me a lot of good experience and knowledge. But at that point in time, felt that there was something I wanted to do something different. Okay. I didn't want to do line HR or corporate HR. That much I knew. Again, I think knowing what you don't want is very good, very important. But I
Yes.
felt that if I don't want to do consulting right now, or if I want to do consulting but in a different form, how should I
Hmm.
approach it? So that's when I started looking out for roles, and I got this opportunity with Society for Human Resource Management. Okay, so
Okay.
SHRM India, they were setting up their knowledge development practice, and their entire knowledge development practice, if you go to their website also, is divided
Mhm.
into 12, 11 to 12 different HR disciplines. So
Okay.
I was in charge of a few disciplines, and one of those disciplines was DEI. Okay,
Okay.
and so that is where my journey started, and this would have been about 2010 2011, which is when I sort of realized that it was the onus of building the knowledge that is going to be consumed by HR professionals. Okay,
Hmm.
the onus
Hmm.
for that, for this particular vertical, lies with me. Okay,
Okay.
so for which
Wow.
I have to equip myself to be good enough, right? Again, it's the same thing, right? So you are catering to an audience which is, if not more knowledgeable, at least as knowledgeable as you, and they are still viewing you as an expert. So you have to come and give them something which is expertise driven. So,
True.
from that point of view, I started upskilling myself. I started not only reading about DEI, but also started assisting in a couple of projects internally in SHRM, which were related to DEI. So, for example, there was an SHRM project which was being done with IIM Bangalore. The
Okay.
research team was working on that project in multi generational diversity. Okay, and and its impact in the workplace. And imagine this is in 2012. Okay, yeah, 2012, at that, so over 11 years ago. And the person who was heading that research, she was working on that research. I started reading up about the research, and she sort of moved out of the organization. So somehow, because I was part of the knowledge development team, the owners to close the project fell on me. So I,
Wow.
so I said, now I have to study. Now I have no option.
Yeah.
Now I have to deliver this project, and I have to deliver it with IIM Bangalore. So the professor's there. So we did a lot of work, and thankfully she had actually done the bulk of the work. It was just a little bit of closure towards the end. So I think that is where it all just started. Like owning a particular vertical, learning more about it, trying to gain experience, practical experience while I was in that organization. And after I moved out of SHRM, also, I worked with a couple of organizations in DEI, because by that time I had developed an interest. So I realized that this is an area of interest for me. If I want to grow in this, I need to work in projects that are in this area. Okay, I need experience, practical experience in this space. So I worked with Interweave Consulting, which is one of the leading DEI consulting firms in India. I worked with them on various things. So I looked after some of their content. They were bringing in the certification program for DEI to India. Okay, with an organization in the US, in partnership with an organization in the US. So I worked on designing the content, of Indianizing the content for that program,
Wow.
for this market, inclusion audits. So these things became like things that I could relate to, and I knew practically. I was not just reading articles about it, I was doing it.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that is what made a big difference in my own growth, in my own learning about the subject. And I continued, like I said, with Interview for a while, for a couple of years. Worked with another organization in DEI called Kelp
Hmm.
HR. Worked with another one, and these are in that phase between 2014 to 2021. Okay,
Hmm.
for 7 years I actually worked independently. So I was on retailership, so 1 year with this organization, 1 year with that organization. And I think it also stemmed from a very personal need, because the reason I moved to freelancing or independent working, as we may call it, or gig workers like we call them now,
Yeah.
was because there was lack of DEI practices that supported
Hmm.
women who had children. Okay, and
Okay.
I had my child at that point in time. did not actually find, enough support from a organizational point of view for child care, and things like that. So I think that also, at a personal level, I was driven to see that, why is there such lack of awareness? This is such a important issue, right? I mean, there are women like me. I am just one person, but if you just look at the statistic, there's so many women who drop off the workforce
Hmm.
because there is no supporting practices in organizations. Maternity leave of 3 months, 4 months is not enough. It's not going to, help a person manage this new phase in their life, and also
True.
manage to do their organizational responsibilities. So,
Totally true.
and stemming from that, the biases. Okay, so somebody comes back to work after the maternity leave. There's a certain viewpoint. Managers were not in tune in terms of, not holding a performance bias against that person. Okay,
Wow.
so when I did those studies, also, in fact, one of the studies was about how were managers dealing with their women employees or women team members who were coming back to the workforce after maternity leave. Was there any sensitization that was done? What was their viewpoint? Were they so they would not very obviously or evidently have a bias, like do something against somebody just because
Hmm.
they had come
Hmm.
from maternity, but there were very insidious ways, very unconscious ways, like, don't give them high profile projects. They've just had a baby, they won't be able to spend time. Don't they've been on maternity leave for 6 months, rating change kar do. So these kind of things would happen. So it started with that, those multiple conversations, and then understanding what was happening. That the journey of DI became very personal to me. And then, of course, like I said, technically I started getting more involved in terms of working with organizations who were working with clients in this area, and building my knowledge on that front. So I think
Okay.
those elements would probably have played a very key role in my journey when it started. Yeah,
So,
no
in
problem.
this journey of yours, it was not that you were taught something and then you were given a project about it. You were not given a project about what you knew, but you were given a project and
Yeah,
then you started learning about it, especially with the DEI.
correct, correct,
So, be it with
correct.
the consulting project, be it with the research
Yeah,
project with IIT.
yeah. I was not trained. Correct. I was not trained for it. I was not qualified for doing it. So I did it, and then I.
I have seen
Yeah,
people shut down because they feel they don't
yeah,
know anything or they are not qualified for it. So they just
yeah.
jump out of it to
Yeah,
let.
it is a very significant point actually, Nishant, and that's true. There are points in time where, I mean, I have also felt that, I don't know if I can do this. And I don't know why I'm actually having to do this. Right. But I think once you overcome that, I think it's just that 5-10 seconds, or maybe 5-10 minutes. I don't know, whatever the time frame for everybody is.
Mhm.
But for me, it's like that 5-10 minutes of feeling stressed and doubtful. And then I'm like, chalo, dekhenge. Let's at least do it.
Okay.
You know,
Hmm.
we'll see, right? Like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if I don't try it, how will I know that it is not going to work?
Very
So
true.
I think that has helped me a lot. That has helped me a lot.
Very true. That's the perspective a person should have. Okay, अपनी तरफ से तो कर
Yeah.
लेते हैं ना. Let's do what we can,
Correct.
and we'll
Correct.
let the results
You know,
decide. So, from
absolutely.
this doing research, how did you get
Yeah.
into teaching? Like as you are visiting faculty at two universities, including your
Yeah.
own.
Yes. So I think, so with GIM, with Goa Institute of Management, it was again, a very organic process, because what happened was that they reached out,
Mm-hmm.
and this was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And they reached out saying that because they'd seen the work I was doing in DEI, and they said, we had this course a couple of years ago, but it sort of didn't really pick up, and we want to restart it. But we need a new curriculum, we need a new
Mm-hmm.
course, and need somebody who will design it and also deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be an HR elective. We will offer it to the students if the students take it in the second year. So, students who already decided their specialization, right? So they'll pick up, if they pick it up, then we will roll it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, fair enough, I'll do that, but you'll have to let me know that, what are you expecting of me, and what is the. So it started as a 2 credit course, and which means 18 sessions
Yeah.
and 18 classes. And when they first rolled it out, in my initial conversations, which was maybe about May of that year, they didn't have enough registrations. So they said that, that many students have not signed up, and this was again, so imagine, just 5 years back. I said, all right, no worries. So we won't do it this year. We'll do it next year. But what happened was that the students who had registered for it, right? They went because they were so passionate and they wanted to do
Mhm.
it. They went around speaking to their friends
Wow.
and they said, register, 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 you know. So that's how they have a minimum. So there was a minimum guidelines.
Yeah.
I think it's a UGC guideline
Yes.
that this many students have to register only, then the course will be floated and done.
Yeah.
So they spoke to their friends and everybody, and that's how we basically matched that number. And then the head of department from the human resources and OD department came and said that, we have enough students and this is what has happened. I
Wow.
said, all right. I said, okay, so we'll run it. So that was how. So then I started designing the course, and then I pulling back from all the experience that I had. I wanted to structure it in a way that would be student friendly also, because like I said, I've done it. You've seen the approach that I had to take,
Yeah.
right? But if I'm going in there and trying to help students understand it, the reason for doing the course is to give them the leverage that I didn't have, right?
Yeah.
Because I had not done this course, so I did not have the leverage, and I think being able to share that knowledge and give them that head start was very important. So I had to design the course with a certain amount of theory, because they were used to a certain amount of theory being shared, you
Yeah.
know so they had to be, especially in universities, right? They're expecting an HR course which will have theory. So,
True.
and I mean, at 15 years out of the system, and I would think, yeah, jo pada hai, wo to is okay. I don't know. So you're already experienced. You're thinking that, why should I break their bubble and burst their bubble and tell them that there's no point in all this theory. You really need practical knowledge. But I had to balance that, my thought process and what would the students be able to absorb and their receptivity levels. So I, made sure that the course was a mix of not just theory, but also case studies, but also some introspective exercises.
Hmm.
Because I mean, a lot of DEI is introspection. Until I look inside inward, I'm never going to be an inclusive person outwards. So my
Okay.
journey has to start of inclusion has to start with me.
Hmm.
And so, help. So a lot of introspective exercises on them understanding where they were biased, on them understanding in regular life how biased all of us are,
Hmm.
and that we don't get a different person into the workplace when we go in. We go in as we are. We go in with our value systems. We go in with our biases,
Yeah. Very true.
right? So until we address that and until we recognize that and accept that and mitigate anything which is affecting my work decisions, I'm not going to be inclusive. And so the whole purpose of DEI is not going to work. I mean, I can hire us 20% women, 50% women, or different people from the LGBTQI community, or individuals from different generations, differently able people. But all of that is not going to fall flat if I don't begin that journey of introspection and being inclusive myself,
Yeah.
right? So that is what I wanted to get through with the course also.
Okay.
And I think the first year it went very well. I mean, after subsequently also it's gone very well. But what I'm saying is that that first year was a little bit of nervousness for me also, because that was the first time I was teaching. I think the profile of the MBA students has also changed.
Okay.
Like when I went to do my MBA,
Mhm.
I had not done any job. So I had gone into the work into my MBA with zero experience, zero work experience. Now, if you see, a lot of people work for some years and then go and do the MBA. Okay,
Yeah.
so the students I saw and met, many of them actually had work experience,
Yeah.
and then they were coming. So they brought a very interesting perspective when we would have our group discussions about DEI, which was very good for me, which was a very good experience for me. So I think over the years, that's how it evolved.
Wow. Yes, this one thing, even during my MBA, I have learned this, that having work experience made the learning
Mm,
experience much more profound, and they were able to extract a
absolutely.
lot more knowledge and even put up the questions that a person who did not have work experience would not even think about. Because at that time, you
Correct.
take everything at face value. You do not have experience
Yeah,
about it. You have not faced the
exactly.
challenges around the same.
Correct. So you think this is how it is going to be.
Mhm.
So you go with that mindset into the
Yeah.
workplace. Then at the workplace, so many of your own thought processes, your myths of what you studied will break down,
Yeah.
right? Those things get broken down very fast. So
Yeah.
you, unless you're prepared for it, it's very difficult.
Very true. So, how did you also get invited to Modi University after that? That's the second college, right?
Yeah. So Professor Sen Gupta, who's the dean for Modi University's School of Management, he used to be my marketing professor in GIM.
Wow. Okay.
So he saw that I was taking these sessions in GIM,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that you're teaching this there. He said, why don't you teach our girls also? I said, all right. I said, what is the course like that you want to? So they sent me. Now I had here, like in the first
Yeah.
case, I had designed the course,
Hmm.
but here they sent me some material that they felt should be covered, and in addition to that, what I was covering.
Okay.
So I realized that they were not looking at it from an HR elective point of view. They were looking at it as a core course in HR.
Okay. Much more.
Yeah, so which is why, like in GIM, I was doing 16 sessions. Here, I'm doing 39.
Wow, more than
You
double.
know, yeah. So 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 imagine the depth of content that is got to be covered,
Yeah.
right? And plus, the profile is different. Like here, so there you're getting different profiles because they're a mixed gender
Okay.
classroom. Okay, here at Modi University, it's a women's only
Wow.
university.
Okay.
So the experience of the information, the experience, was very different. Plus, here there were a lot of students who were very experienced. Like at least if they've even not even very experienced, but at least 3, 4, 5 years of experience in certain cases before they came and did their MBA. But here, most of the girls who were there were freshers.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a very different audience.
Yeah.
So I had to really make sure, to cater the content in along these parameters.
Okay.
Okay, and I think the other big thing was that course started when I was doing physical classes. So I was going into campus doing the classes at 2018, 2019.
Hmm.
I had gone physically for the
Okay.
sessions. 2020 onwards, but after the pandemic, it became virtual, right?
Okay.
In case of Modi University, it was virtual from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So I did not have any actual contact,
Yeah.
with the students. And a course like DEI, and unfortunately for me, my travel is very restricted because my kids are still very small.
Oh, okay.
But I think the whole thing was that, to deliver a course like that virtually, again, I had to think of things which would make the course interesting,
Hmm. True.
and, things that would hold attention in a virtual span. Because, it's a very, one, it's a very vast topic. Secondly, it's a very subjective topic. Okay, so, it's not like, like we have five different proven theories and you're covering it and it's done.
Uh-huh.
It's done and dusted. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
It's so human driven. It is so emotion driven. So it's a lot of them multiple layers in a course like that. Like I said, you're fluctuating between self introspection and then looking at it in the context of an organization. So that journey of self discovery to how it applies in the organization context, who am I in the workplace? So a lot of those things, conversations are very integral.
So, does sometimes these conversations go towards a spiritual perspective or a very, I don't know, meditative or look within and see things from a different perspective? So,
Absolutely. I think every class that I have done, every class,
uh-huh.
every session I have done starts with an introspection exercise.
Okay.
Because like I said, that the journey of DEI is not about some XYZ theory that somebody has written about in DEI. DEI itself is such a new area.
Yeah.
Who is going to take out the theories? Where are the models?
True.
Right? Like something like finance will have a book which will have a marketing bible, and even in HR, some like OB, if somebody says organization behavior, okay, there are psychometric tests and psychological models and things like that, right? But here you're talking about people. Here you're talking about how people behave in the
Yeah.
workplace, because of who they are.
True. Yeah.
Okay, and then repeatedly telling them that this will work but this will not work. Okay, and so this is how you make that journey from, without losing your self identity,
Okay.
without losing that, how do you make that journey of, okay, maybe this is who I am and maybe these are my biases. I think that's the most difficult part. Like you said, it's like meditation to understand that I'm biased. It's the biggest thing for people to accept.
True.
Who is able to say that in my bias I have taken this decision? How many leaders will come and tell you that today? Hardly any, right? It takes a lot of courage to do it. So I think it is meditative in a way.
True. And I think a huge part of it is knowing it themselves. They might not even know they're doing
Yeah,
because they're biased. These are unconscious
correct,
biases.
correct.
And
Absolutely, I think a large part of it is unconscious.
and I also relate this with one of the things you shared earlier, where you Indianized some of the course data.
Yeah,
So India, a country
correct,
where the culture changes every few kilometers, every few miles,
correct,
and you have to
correct.
Indianize it means that's a
Yeah,
whole lot of work. That's unfathomable.
yeah, absolutely.
So, how did all of this come in play at your consulting role in your current job?
So let me tell you, I don't do DEI in my consulting role.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I work in reward consulting,
Hmm.
But I do DEI. So I was part of a project which we did from Aeon with NASCOM
Okay.
a few months ago, primarily because of the work I've done before I rejoined Aeon
Okay.
in DEI, and because it is an area that I'm passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked on this project, which we've recently released. I think in June of this year, we released the report. We did a sort of study and with organizations about, and again, there is nothing like that that exists in India, where we are saying that, see, these are organizations and these are their practices in India.
Mm-hmm.
Globally, organizations are doing a lot of things,
Okay.
okay, in DEI. But our emphasis was on one, what portion of these global practices of global entities are being replicated in India.
Okay.
Secondly, what are Indian organizations doing themselves in DEI? Okay. And that also, the DEI conversation was much wider, going beyond gender. See, in India, again, we tend to, I also started like that. We tend to focus primarily on gender. Okay. But gender is just one dimension of diversity.
Okay.
Okay. Like I said, you have age, you have sexual orientation, you have different abilities. So people who have different, who can be differently abled, you have caste, okay, you have language, right? So there are so many variations that are there, and just to focus on one is very difficult, and it's not even fair. So the whole study focused on what is happening in these sub areas or sub dimensions, but also what is happening in general across the spectrum of DEI organizations who are doing excellent work. And how are they doing excellent work? How are they actually identifying ROI? See, I think the biggest challenge with DEI has been that people have not been able to identify what is the business case. People say this is a good to do thing.
Okay.
People will say this is a social initiative. It's good, yeah, okay, women, there are not enough women in the workforce. Women who are returning to workplace, we're getting them back not because it's a business need, because we want to do something good. But
Okay.
that's not true. There is enough and more data, not just on many consulting firms have and research firms have published data about how a more diverse organization actually has higher business growth. Okay. That comes from the basic premise that diversity means diversity of thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Which means diversity of thought leads to innovation, leads to creative solutions. And the day you're able to do it, you're able to scale your business and make it more sustainable in the long run.
True.
So given that entire picture, organizations who are able to see that entire picture end to end are able to talk about DEI from a business perspective. And that is the study that sort of that I worked on with my team internally in Aeon, which we, like I said, which we released, which was about what is actually what is the intent.
Mm-hmm.
So there is intent, and there's good intent, but what is also happening and not happening. Okay.
Okay.
So those are factors that we had to bring out very clearly,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
this is the intent is there,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes the action is not matching the intent.
Okay.
Okay. So we are not tracking, we are not we are saying we're hiring women, but are we also doing everything to keep them in the workflows? We are saying, oh, we did a hiring drive and we hired 50% entry level roles were filled by women. When you hit the mid management level, you see it has dropped to 15%, 20%. Why? So the entire picture is not clear, which is what we aimed to do through the study.
Okay. So now you have much more clearer information and
Yeah.
hopefully enough to make decisive changes in the
Yeah.
processes.
Yeah, that's our hope with releasing that study. I think that is our hope that organizations will use that as a step forward, as identifying, doing their own gap analysis, understanding where they can make the changes themselves, where they need external consulting firms to step in as an external third party entity,
Mhm.
to support their direction in
Okay.
DA.
So, what are the biggest challenges that you see these people face, your client organizations? What are the most common challenges they face?
So I think, because of the different areas that I work in, we have seen so far in the last, the challenges have changed, but I think by and large, the biggest challenges have been, one is knowing what employees want.
Okay.
Okay. Because I think that just changed when the pandemic happened, right?
Mhm.
Organizations also had a certain perception about what employees want, what keeps them engaged, what keeps them motivated. Then the pandemic happened. Then organizations made drastic changes. So I think the first part is that many organizations, not every, but many organizations are grappling with identifying what our employees truly want.
Okay.
Okay, that's one. The second thing is that, I think this whole thing that compensation is important, because I work in compensations. I mean, I love my role, but if I don't get paid fairly at the end of the month, right,
True.
that is going to hit me very hard,
Yeah.
right? And when talk about fairness, I mean, how fair is it as compared to the external market for my role, and how fair is it internally also? Somebody with the same role, same kind of profile, is it difference? Is there pay equity or not?
Okay.
Okay, internally. So I think that's the other challenge they are facing, that they are trying to get credible data, because I think data is actually very, very critical now. Every decision that organizations are making now are fact based decisions, because after the pandemic they're obviously also trying to find their feet again. The businesses have suffered, some businesses have suffered, so there has been a slowdown.
Hmm.
So they want to find their feet again, so now they're taking decisions which are based on facts, and which is wherein they rely on organizations like ours, to come to them with information, okay, which is collected from very credible sources, which is clients themselves, and give them advice on, okay, this is what data is saying, so take your decisions based on data. Gone are the days where you can say my gut feeling is saying this.
True.
Okay? And I'm serious,
Yeah.
my gut feeling cannot decide a business decision today, which can land me into a difficult situation. Okay. So whether it is pay decision, whether it is talent management, okay, is this person the right person for the next role, right? There are, again, you need data, you need assessments, proper tools to assess whether this person is a right fitment from the kind of traits you need for a future leader point of view or not.
Okay.
So that is the depth in which clients are now moving in, because like I said, every decision is a business decision. It impacts business directly. Okay. So they are being very cognizant of the fact that they have their ground covered, because boards are also asking them questions, right?
Yeah.
So even leadership can't take decisions randomly.
True.
They need to justify to the board. So when there are so many stakeholders who are involved, for us it becomes very important that we provide clients with the data that they need, so that they are
Okay.
able to comfortably and very transparently share with their board the decisions they're making.
So this I totally resonate with, that when your decision can impact a lot of
Yeah.
people, thousands of lives, then you have to
Yeah.
make decisions based on concrete data, justifiable
Yeah.
data. When you are one, your decision has huge impact, and two, you are also held accountable by, in this case, board, and if you
Absolutely.
are a VP, then by CXOs.
Correct. Very true. Very true.
So, how do you go about facing these challenges and breaking them down? What are the key components that you find to be the most challenging?
I think understanding, like I said, like organizations are trying to understand what the employees want. I think consultants are trying to understand what their clients want,
Uh-huh.
right? So, what I've shared with you is a sort of summary of a range of needs
Okay.
that clients have. So, to be able to understand what a client wants and what we can do, okay, for them is very important, because, like I said, we have a lot of responsibility when we sign up with clients, because there are certain clients who may still know more than us in certain areas of
Yeah.
work, but they still treat us as experts. So we have to live up to that experience. We have to live up to that vision of the client that you are an expert. Okay. And the second thing is that I think that is one very thing that, that is challenging, right? Because you have to make sure that, your client trusts you. I think trust is the biggest challenge, and that takes time to form, because it's a competitive market. You're up against different players in the market. So it's not just us that is a consulting firm. There are many consulting firms. There are many products. There are
Yeah.
many solutions in the market. Why should a client come to us, right? Now, like I said, until you understand the client's requirement and you're able to match your solution to the client's requirement, I think that is the tricky part.
Okay.
Okay. Typically, that takes time, and that takes, a lot of conversations with the client. It takes a very, very important role that listening plays there. You have to listen more than you actually talk, because I think a lot of people think consultants talk a lot. Okay. And they are giving advice, giving giving gyan, giving trends, all of that. But actually, I mean, a good consultant and a true consultant will be listening more
True. Yeah.
to pick up the cues that, okay, this is where we will come in.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that is the tricky part. Identifying that in different conversations is a very important thing. And I think the other challenge that I face, that I don't face really just personally me, but I think everybody probably who's in consulting will face, is that sometimes, you have to say no. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to say yes because you're a business, right? You want to get this business. You want to be able to sell, right? And so that's one voice in your head that is saying you should make this sale, you should sell this. But there is another voice which will tell you that you may sell this, but this is a client who will not be happy because this solution is not exactly as per what they're looking for. Okay. So at that point in time, you have to take that balanced approach and be very honest and frank with the client. Okay. And that's difficult,
Yeah.
let me tell you, like for any, like I said, because you're so in tune to wanting to onboard a client, that is very difficult to take a step back and say, you know what, we don't think we can do this at this point in time, and this is a solution we don't have, or we have something, but this is what it is. So this may meet some part of your need, but it will not meet 100% of your need. Okay. And for me, I think I've seen that has worked really well, because the more honest you are, the more likelihood there is of this client coming back to you 6 months down the line when they have another requirement.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you're honest right now, because it's a large organization, right? They may have multiple requirements. They may have come to you with one requirement right now, which is their immediate need.
Yeah.
You may not be able to fulfill it. And if you're honest and able to tell them about what you can do and what you can't do in all transparency, then I've seen that many times, after a few months, the same client comes back and says that, okay, fine, we have this other need. Is this possible? Okay. So the different area in HR, different, and there are solutions, and it's likely that we have a solution there. So which is what I think, is to let the
Yeah.
long term voice, speak louder than your, short term voice, which is saying, get this done, get this done.
Yeah, I
So
totally understand. So now I'll take this into a slightly different tangent on how well do you think mental health of a person plays a role in their journey as an employee, and by effect their contribution to the DEI environment of the company.
I think it's a very, very important question. I'm so glad you've asked this, because I think this is one of the areas where I think many organizations are also sort of grappling with the changing reality of the world we are in. Right? I think the good part is we're talking more about it. The sad part is that we don't understand it as much as we should. And I think I'll go back to what I said earlier about, in the context of DEI, that we don't leave who we are outside of our workplace. We are in a situation where our mental health is not strong, okay, or we are facing some challenges which are impacting our mental health, and we're not able to voice it, or we have no avenue to share it, we are likely carrying that into our
Yeah.
workplace. Okay. It will impact our behavior. Okay. It will impact our behavior not only with like our colleagues, but even, like I said, if from a consulting point of view, it'll impact our behavior with our clients. It'll impact our behavior in not only in smaller teams but in larger teams, in any situation. Okay. So I think that the fact that mental health is so crucial to employee performance is now gaining momentum, that idea. Okay. In fact, even in Aon, we have our chief wellness officer, and she repeatedly talks about yesterday I think I was seeing a podcast from her about employee happiness.
Okay.
Right? How important is it to talk about happiness? Very important. How important it is to understand whether your employees are happy or not. Very, very important to gauge that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think the first step to understanding mental health challenges starts at that stage, to try and understand your employees first. Okay. Understand, not only view them as employees, but you view them as individuals who have a life outside work.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when, and if they have life outside work, there will be challenges outside of work
Yeah.
which can impact their workplace, right? So if I have personal challenges, it's possible that there's a certain level of stress it will create in my mind. We are not robots, right? So we can't switch off and switch on.
Yeah.
So it will inherently come into my mind at some point in time. and unknowingly impact my performance in, or if it doesn't impact my performance also, maybe it'll impact my relationships in the workplace,
Yeah, it will have
my
its effect.
interaction in the workplace, so it'll have those things impact, and I will not be able to be a team player. Even if I'm a high potential employee, I will not be able to perform as per my potential. Okay. And that's it, I think, instead of um, thinking that, just looking at, like I said, just looking at, okay, why is this employee's performance not in line with what we want it to be? I think organizations need to try and dig a little deeper, find out, what could be the reason for that. Okay. Is it actually related to something in the organization, or is it something outside?
Okay.
Okay. Give them opportunities to talk about it. See, I think some employees will prefer individual. How many organizations actually have counseling sessions? They pay for it? No. Very few organizations will pay for you to go to a counselor and talk,
Mhm.
right? Why? And why don't employees do it? The employees don't do it for two reasons. One, sometimes therapy sessions are expensive.
Mhm.
Okay. Secondly, there's a stigma associated with it. Okay. By from when the organization takes that step of giving a benefit like that, or talking about it, or saying, you know what, we have an in-house counselor. Okay. If you're comfortable, go ahead and have that conversation. Or if you are doing it outside, this is the amount, we will reimburse it. This is a limit and we will reimburse it. But have that conversation. I think, when that constant urging is there or encouragement is there, employees will be able to do both. They will be able to destigmatize the fact that, mental health is a problem that can be there for anybody, everybody. Okay, irrespective of their circumstances. Okay, I can be in the happiest of circumstances and still be impacted by mental health challenges.
Yeah,
Okay,
very true.
so I think that recognition and that understanding and identifying that I am actually experiencing something which is from a mental or emotional perspective pulling me down, that recognition has to come from the employee or the person, individual.
Yeah.
There, like I said, organization can provide them with avenues to do it. Okay. And plus, I think very important is that, again, like with DEI, okay, I can go and give 100 lectures on DEI. Okay. But if I don't follow it in my actions in my
Mhm.
workplace, in front of my team,
Mhm.
okay, my team is not going to get the message of me being inclusive,
Yeah.
right? Same with mental health. We can create hundreds of well-being and wellness initiatives, right? If the leaders don't do it
Mhm.
and say, boss, I'm going to switch off. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch off because this is a wellness initiative, and this is what it requires me to do, and I'm going to switch off from work and just take this time off because I care about my well-being. Okay, work will happen. I think unknowingly you give out a message to everybody else. They're not asking you for permission, but tacit permission comes.
Yeah.
Okay, that, okay, the leader is doing this, why can't I?
Yeah.
Right. I think those things make a big difference.
Yeah, and acceptance towards this. Otherwise, people
Correct.
would feel, oh, I can't switch off from work. What will people think?
Correct. Correct. What will everybody else think? My work is so crucial,
Yeah.
that nobody else
True.
that nobody else can do it.
So,
So those kind of
what do
things.
you
Yeah.
think are the initiatives that should be taken to support employees' mental health? That companies should take, be it your clients or your own organization, even.
I think the first step, like I said, is more and more conversations. That's one.
Mhm.
The second is giving them opportunities to de-stress. Okay. So again, I don't want to, like, I mean, I can only talk about my organization primarily because of what I've experienced, right? So we have global wellness days when the office shuts down complete everywhere globally.
Okay.
Okay. So we have two every year, which, wherein everybody is encouraged to shut down their work. Okay. And this is clubbed with a weekend. So it's a Friday or a Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Long weekends.
Yeah. So, so you actually, so organization is giving you that message that, we are giving you the opportunity to unplug. Okay. Take it. Okay. So I think that is a very uh, big thing. Okay. The second thing is, I think, having teams which are empathetic to each other's needs. Okay. So like I said, like, and I say this repeatedly, I have small kids.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Understanding that, and then I work with one of my colleagues who is differently able, so we have to understand each other's needs as team members. Okay. That empathy is where that inclusion part comes, that until I'm actually inclusive, until I try and imagine what it is to be in the other person's shoes, I am never going to be able to take the steps to uh, you know um, rebalance things in the workplace. Okay. So I think that sort of helps, because then like I said, then I'm also not stressed mentally, because I know my team understands me, understands my condition, right? That person who is maybe differently abled, or somebody who is maybe has some other requirements, or has elderly parents to take care of, and therefore they need some time off sometimes. That understanding of each other's personal, like I said, the understanding that I am not just a person sitting here and doing this work, but I'm also a person outside of this, and I have some other responsibilities, and I have some other things outside of this that are important for me, or maybe I have certain conditions which do not allow me to, sit for say hours and do stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So understanding of that reduces mental stress.
Okay.
Okay, so inclusion has a very direct impact on mental stress.
Yeah.
More inclusive the environment, the higher the ability for employees to be able to release their mental stress and be in a healthier space emotionally.
Very
Okay,
true.
I think that's very, that empathy is very very critical. From that point of view, being able to, again, like I said, small gestures, like when I was in another project, I needed to suddenly take leave, okay,
Mm-hmm.
for my child. And I mean, I did not have my managers telling me that, you first mark the leave and then take leave. I had managers who told me, you take the leave and then you tell me. We don't, because your family is priority. Your family needs you right now. Your child needs you right now. Why are you asking us, you know, for leave? You should simply just take the leave, and then we'll do everything else. You can apply, do whatever you want to do. Okay. So I think that makes that kind of come again, like I said, that trust, that, that work will get done. Work is work. Work will get done. Performance is not getting impacted, but the person needs to be treated as a person.
Yeah.
Okay, and they will have these things, and life will happen.
Yeah. True.
Okay,
Yeah. Exactly.
work is happening, but life will continue to happen, right? Like I cannot stop life from happening around me.
Totally.
You know, so I think those things make a big difference.
Mhm.
That organizations should definitely be doing.
So, do organizations look out for these, or is there like a gap between what they should be doing and what they're looking out for in terms of their employees' mental
I think, see, what I see now is that there is
health?
awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So they have become aware that mental health issues have, especially, I don't know if they've arisen more or there is more awareness because of the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
but there is definitely, people are at least talking about it. Organizations are talking about it. Then the other thing is, organizations are trying to put in some steps in place to balance things out, but I still feel a lot of it is cultural. See, I mean, like I said, a lot of it has got to do with company culture. Until you fundamentally change a company's culture in terms of making it, like I said, inclusive, empathetic, leaders understanding these nuances about
Uh-huh.
employees, not, not where, leaders are saying, no, I will only assess you if you come into office every day from 9 to 5. So I mean,
Yeah,
that kind of mindset has got to change,
that
right?
time's gone.
I think until that, that time is gone, that population is gone. I think leaders who think that they can do that and get talent in this market, I think they're very very overly optimistic,
Uh-huh.
because the current generation doesn't care.
True. Yeah.
They don't care, that I have to sit in office. My work is done. My work is done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will do it from there. And I feel, and what I realize is that organizations are now waking up to the fact that there is work and there is life and there is passion. There are people who pursue certain passions in life. Like I said, I have a community which does baking. Baking has nothing to do with my day job. It has nothing to do with my personal life. It is an interest to have, right? So there are people who go trekking, people who travel, people who like do other social impact work, or anything, like they do different kinds of things, right? They want to do, people who paint, people who sing, people who dance, right? So people have other passions they want to follow, and they want to make time for it. Okay, I think that awareness is now slowly coming, that okay, fine, that an employees, we need to look at employees in a holistic way. Okay, and their well-being is a component of all these things. Their well-being cannot be just, okay, I paid you this and that's enough.
Okay.
Like I'm paying you the best in the market and that's enough. That will not be enough. That is needed to pay not the best, but at least what is market competitive.
Uh-huh.
But apart from that, you have to do a lot of other things also to ensure that your employees are, well taken care of.
Okay. So, the awareness of what is needed is now arising, and There is still some gap between its implementation, though.
There is. There's a huge gap. Little, I think, is a nice way to say it. The huge gap in implementation. We're still looking at it operationally. I mean, I introduce this benefit? Can I just do this in policy? That's not going to, again, those are very, very small steps. Okay, that'll take us like decades to get to where we want to. You want to actually make a big change, you have to take big, significant steps. You know, to take that leap. In terms of making those changes quickly so that your employees can benefit from those changes.
Wow, that's quite interesting. That's probably a journey of a decade at least, but
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
it'll be a good one, hopefully for the
Yes,
organizations and the employees.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Miss Imran, for coming on this podcast. And you had such diverse experiences that you were able to put through in a story format. I was like, yeah, learning in your, being a student in your class would be interesting.
That you'll have to ask the students. Sure.
Thank you
Yeah.
again. And
Thank you so much, Shant. Thank you for your time also. I had a great time talking to you.
I'm really glad you enjoyed the conversation.